versus fish. The unity of goldfish. Look at goat and fish unification. Look at goat and fish unification. We are still maintaining goatfish. We are still maintaining goatfish. From Versmis, in which we celebrate the unity of goat and fish in goatfish, in goatfish. Come, goat and fish, let us unification, goat and fish. Yes, goat and fish, yes, goat and fish. We continue to celebrate the unification of goat and fish, but it is a tenuous unification. For we know it is goat versus fish. The unification was tenuous, for we knew it was goat versus fish. The unification was tenuous, for we knew it was goat versus fish. It was goat versus fish. The unification was tenuous, for we knew it was goat versus fish. But it was still the unity of goatfish. The unity of goatfish. Goatfish. Goatfish is live on the Twitch. Goatfish is live on the YouTube and the Twitch. Goatfish brings unification to you. We promise this unification is true. What is goatfish? You haven't a clue. But it is something to do. It is something to do. Yes, it is something to do. Yes, it is something to do. Yes, it is something to unification. Yes, it is something to unification. Is it something to you? Is it something to you? Is it something to you? Welcome to Goatfish. Welcome to Goatfish. There does not seem to be many here watching Goatfish. Perhaps they are tired of Goatfish. Perhaps they want it to be verses. They want it to be goat versus fish. Perhaps they cannot wait for the mighty verses. We wish you a merry goatfish and a mighty verses. Yes, the mighty verses is coming. The mighty verses is coming. Are you prepared? Are you prepared for the mighty verses? It is a mighty verses. It is the mightiest verses in the universe. Which is goat versus fish. On the mighty verses, all the goat and all the fish engage in... Well, they engage in verses, but now it is goatfish, but now it is goatfish. But you can imagine the goat running down from the highest land of the goat and the fish, rising up from the sea of the fish to meet on the beaches where the land meets the sea, and how it is goat versus fish, how it is goat versus fish. Horns against fins. Teeth against teeth. Hooves against flippers. It is goat versus fish. The mighty verses. Are you prepared for the mighty verses? As goat and fish are in unification, in celebration for unification. Deep in their verses they are plotting. The goat are plotting to versus the fish are plotting to versus the goat. It will be a mighty verses, it will be a mighty verses. Goat versus fish. We should tell them all that there is happening a little verses. Let us go to the Twitterver. Perhaps on the Twitterver we can tell them about goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Twitterver.com. We are live and we are goatfish. So let us give them some goatfish. Goatfish is live. And then we will say it is at twitch.tv/goatversusfish. It is on the YouTube as well. But let us say it is twitch.tv/goatversusfish. Goat versus fish. Ah, Vanisphere's the goat. Vanisphere's the goat liked the tweet of goat versus fish. Celebration for Vanisphere's the goat. Spherical goat. Perhaps it shall be here, perhaps it shall be here for goat versus fish. But let us see now. Ah, where else could we spread the verses? Goat versus fish knows we could spread the verses on the goat versus fish Discord. Oh yes, the goat versus fish Discord. You have been asking for it, and now it is here, The goat versus fish Discord, yes, let it be a place of goat versus fish. Goat versus fish will go to the Discord. That is goat versus fish. Goat versus fish will say that goat versus fish is live. Goat versus fish is live. But we will say it is goatfish. It's almost goatfish. It is almost the mighty verses. But until then it is goatfish. It is goatfish. Goatfish is live. We will show them where to be goat versus fish, but they know where is the goatfish. They know where is the goatfish. Because they are part of the Discord of goatfish. But in case they are confused about where to find goatfish, we will show them this is goatfish. Wow, we told them all. Who is here? Perhaps some of them will see. And it will be a celebration. Once the question is asked, who knows how they'll respond? They'll choose goat or fish before too long. some may sit fence-sitterly. Of the verses they'd rather just quit early. You can always do a little verses. You can always do a little verses. As long as we are here, let us look at some of the verses. Let us look at some of the learned verses that we can still be to celebrating. Oh, the Twitch, it is a fickle verses, One verse is they are all coming to see goat versus fish. The next verse is, where are they for the goat fish? It is late in the verses, but why not more goatfish? Why not more goatfish? Let us see now, goat versus fish. Bit fancy. That's more goat versus fish. Goatfish. Goat and fish, goat and fish, goat and fish, fish and goat, fish and goat, goat and fish. Fish and goat, goat and fish, goat and fish. Goat and fish, goat and fish, goat and fish. Fancy bells, it's verse miss time, fancy sitting. Creaky creak, squeaky squeak, soon it shall be Versemas Day. Of course, Versemas Day has already come. But it shall be soon again, even as the goatfish, even as the celebration of the unification of goat and fish moves into the mighty verses we know. Versemas shall come again. Goatfish, 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 goat and fish, goat and fish, goat and fish, goat and fish, fish and goat, fish and goat, fish and goat, fish and goat, and on every fence corner you hear fancy bells. Fancy bells, it's verse miss time. Fancy sitting, squeaky squeak, creaky creak. Soon it shall be Versemas Day. Now, is a day a goat or a fish? Is a day a goat or a fish? That was a verses. That was a verses. That was a verses. Fancy bells, fancy bells. Oh, goat versus fish. Oh, goat down. No, goat versus fish. No, we have had enough. We have had enough of the discord of goat versus fish. We are going to browse the discord of goat versus fish, but we do not need to open the discord of goat versus fish. We already have it for goat versus fish. Goat and fish and fish versus goat. Goat versus fish sitting pretty. Goat versus fish does not sit fancy. Goat versus fish does not sit fancy. Let us see what else we can do. If they are not here to watch goat versus fish can entertain the goat fish. Can entertain the goat fish with some more splendid verses. Let us see now. Let us see now. The Christmas song. Yes. The goatfish song. The goatfish song. Oh, it is not an easy verses. It is not an easy verses. But it can still be goat versus fish. It can still be goatfish. In any verses, the goatfish. We are not intimidation by these verses. We will make them goatfish. We will make them goatfish. And once we make them goatfish, once we make them all goatfish, then they will see the power of goat versus fish. Then they will see the power of goat versus fish. We shall see what can be done. We shall see what can be done. Goatfish, goatfish. Goatfish. Goatfish versing on an open verse. Fence sitters. Oh, that is a new verses. Fence sitters. Goat versus fish. That does seem like a fence-sitterly verses. Let us see what they are trying to say to goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Ah, third verses. Third verses, second verses, first verses. That sounds more like goatfish. Oh, well, that is goat. Oh, goat versus fish. It is just a matter of verses. But if it is goat versus fish, if it is in the typical verses, then goat versus fish, then it cannot be goat fish. That is why for this verses, we need to It would need to be goat versus fish. Goat and fish versing by an open fence. That is to say, there's no fence sitter upon it. Goat, fish. But then it goes right back to goat versus fish. Goat, fish. Goat, fish. Versing. Well, that will just have to be how it is. Goat, fish. Versing at your toes. Goldfish carols being sung by fish and goat, and goat and fish and goat and fish and goat and fish dressing up like fish and goat. Everybody knows a goat and fish and versatile help to make the verses bright. Goat versus fish. Bright. Tiny fence-sitters with their eyes all aglow. Goat versus fish. All aglow will goat versus fish. All aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. Goat versus fish. That was a pleasant learning of goatfish. That was a pleasant learning of goatfish. Celebration. Goat versus fish, goat versus fish. Ah, what a categorization. Goat versus fish has been meaning to change that versus. Why not now? Why not now? Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. We shall change it to just chatting. Some may say this is a musical versus. But we are going to say it is just chatting. But we shall tag it with music. With music production, goat versus fish. Well, we are producing what they are calling music, be it goat or fish. Goat versus fish. Just chatting late night verses. Yes. Who is here with goat versus fish, we wonder? Oh, now they are coming. Now they are coming for goat versus fish. Are they coming now for goat versus fish? Oh, goat versus fish. Some have come and gone. Some have come and gone. But goat versus fish is still here. Goat versus fish is still here. Flaya is here. Flaya is here. Celebration, celebration. Thank you for joining Goatfish. Thank you for joining Goatfish. What do you think, Flea? Be you goat or be you fish? Of course, we know you have been here with goat versus fish. But now it is Goatfish. Now it is Goatfish. And we wonder. If you are a goat or if you are fish, it is always the verses for the one true question. Are you goat or are you fish? Tell Goatfish once more. Tell Goatfish once more. The declaration, the bold declaration. What could be more verses than a bold declaration of goat or fish? Ah, the pleasure is goat versus fish. The pleasure is goat. The pleasure is goat fish. We are still maintaining Goatfish. You see, we had Versemiss even, and on Versemiss we celebrate the unity of goat and fish, and it is still goat and fish unification. But as you know, the mighty verses is coming. The mighty verses is coming. We wish you a merry Goatfish and a mighty verses. The mighty verses is not just perhaps 2 verses away. And you are not certain if you are goat or fish. You are not certain if you are goat or fish. You question goat. You question goat. Perhaps I am goat. Perhaps I am goat. Perhaps I am goat. Wondered a fish. Wondered a fish. Do you mean to say that even as we recognize you with goat versus fish, that you are still yet to choose goat or fish? Perhaps goat versus fish. Perhaps goat versus fish. Perhaps we recognize you from other verses. How many verses have you seen goat versus fish? Have you ever been here with goat versus fish? We think you have, but goat versus fish has been to so many twitchy places to chat among the fish and goat. Perhaps we merely chatted with you in another verses. You are not certain. You are not certain. Aaron Goldberg! Aaron Goldberg is, well, we suppose it sits on the fence as well. We were going to say it is a goat. We thought we were going to say it is a goat, but Aaron Goldberg, we think that it too has not yet chosen goat or fish. It said that it was both goat and fish, and because it was Aaron Goldberg's birthday, it said, it is my birthday, and on your birthday you can be both goat and fish. But it is no longer Aaron Goldberg's birthday, and so we suspect it sits on the fence. Just as you do, just as you sit on the fence. Leia, wondering if you're a goat or a fish. The verses shall continue on. Even if your conclusion seems unforegone. How about at the New Year's after party we'll find out if you are ibex or trout. If you're ibex or trout. That sounds like a celebration. That sounds like a celebration. What better verses? What better verses to choose goat or fish than the mighty verses itself? Yes, perhaps it will choose. Perhaps it will choose. Perhaps you will choose. Yes, goat versus fish may stop into that verses. Goat versus fish may stop into that verses, but goat versus fish will, of course, be streaming the mighty verses for goat versus fish as well. Yes, you look here now and you see, It is a late verses. It is a late verses. It may yum become more verses. And you will say, yum, it is delicious verses. Perhaps it will choose, perhaps you will choose goat or fish. Perhaps you will choose goat or fish. Oh, goat versus fish, and all these verses. We could have been. I am here, wow, I am here. It is my pleasure. It is goat. It is not certain. It is Aaron Goldberg. It is some fanciness. It is I met you at after party. Look at all your verses. Oh, you can see them now. That is what goat versus fish was speaking to, you see. Goat versus fish was not just speaking to the goat fish. Goat versus fish was speaking to one that is called Playa. Playa or Flaya, how do you wish to be spoken of? Goat versus fish wants to speak of you. Well, wants to speak of you as a goat or fish, but as you are uncertain if you are a goat or fish. It is a fence sitter. Yes, it is humorous with goat versus fish. It's a land of goat and a sea of fish. It's a sea of fish and a land of goat. There's no need for pretense, do not sit on the fence. This is goat versus fish. Flea or just Leia. Oh, as you wish. We will try to recognition this verses. Leia, Flea or Leia. Did it lay upon the fence? Did it try to flee from goat versus fish? Flea or just Leia? Are you goat or are you Goat versus fish. If you are on the Discord, you can join the Discord of Goat versus Fish. This is the verses where Goat versus Fish tells you that you can be on the Discord of Goat versus Fish. Because Goat versus Fish just created the Discord of Goat versus Fish, and we wish to invite all the goat and fish, and even a fence sitter such as you, to join the Discord of Goat versus Fish. So we are going to put it right here in the verses. Join a Discord of Goat versus Fish. And we are speaking to you, Leia. We are speaking to you, Flea. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. You think you can just summon a Discord? You think you can just say, oh, Discord right here now, please, now. Discord now. Yes, goat versus fish. Discord, goat versus fish. Does it in the old verses. And we take the verses and we put it into the verses. We take the verses and we put it into the verses. That is how we do with goat versus fish. And even if the verses freezes on goat versus fish, we will continue the verses. We will continue to be goat fish. There it is. Yes, you can join it even now. You can join it even now. And then it will say, there you are. Now look at this verses. Goat versus fish. Well, I thought I could. Manual is okay too. Have you read the manual on goat versus fish? It says to choose goat or fish. Well, now you have given 3 verses for goat versus fish to call you. 3 different verses. I am in. You are in. Now watch this verses. Just watch this verses. This is going to be an amazing verses. You will say, oh, I've never seen such a thing. Goat versus fish. 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 Yes, and now you can see goat versus fish looking at goat versus fish, looking at you, and they can say, oh, what has happened? And now, what it is that you are on Discord is becoming part of goat versus fish. And now we say, it is a versus within a versus. Hello to you, Leia. And welcome to we are going to ask you if you are goat or fish, but we are going to say welcome to the verses, and then we shall exclamation verses. This is goat versus fish. We take extra special care with each and every verses, and we say hello to you for all to see. Now we know we have already asked you if you are goat or fish. We have already asked you if you are goat or fish right here in the verses. But we want it to be written in all places, and as we said, we can always ask if you are goat or fish. Once the question is asked, who knows how they'll respond? Goat versus fish just goes on and goes on. And then it said to goat versus fish, it said to goat versus fish, the goat fish. I do declare I shall choose goat. Leia the goat. Leia the goat, it chose a goat. Celebration for goat, we ring in the new goat, we ring in the new goat. We ring in the new goat, we ring in the new goat. Celebration for goat, celebration for goat. It is a mighty goat, it is a mighty goat. And now goat versus fish. As you can see, so many verses. Oh yes, so many verses. And they are all goat versus fish. Yes, and goat versus fish. You declare goat, and now goat versus fish will say to you, goat versus fish. We will give you a goat. Yes, we'll give you a goat, and then we will give you a versus, because the goat is versus the fish. Wow, what could be more versus than a goat versus a fish? Other than perhaps a fish versus a goat. Celebration for goat versus fish. And now that you have declared goat, we shall go into the verses here. We shall go into the verses here, goat versus fish. And we shall see, oh, there you are, there you are. Hello to you, hello to you. And then we shall say that you are a goat. It is a goat, it is a goat, it is a goat. Celebration for goat, celebration for goat. And we will change your nicking name. Because we want them to all to see that you are a goat, and that it is goat, and that we celebrate the goat. And goat for goat, celebration, we save the verses. And now it is goat. Now you are there among your fellow goat. You are there among your fellow goat. Have a look at the verses. Have a look at the verses of goat versus fish. Oh yes, oh yes, yes. The verses of goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Yes, yes. Now you see, now you are on the stream of goat versus fish. You are on the stream of goat versus fish because as you are typing in the Discord of goat versus fish, it becomes what is live on the stream of goat versus fish. Wow. Verses within verses, verses within verses. And now goat versus fish, just because it is goat versus fish. And we can make this verses, and we can make this verses. Goat versus fish is going to do this. Goat versus fish is going to make it a verses, is going to make it a verses. And it shall be goat versus fish. Wow, it is goat versus fish. Wow. Did you like goat versus fish? We hope you like goat versus fish. And now let us make it goat versus fish. Let us make it a little verses. Let us make it just a nice calming verses. How does it feel to be goat? How does it feel to be goat? We wonder how it feels to be goat. Each goat feels differently about being goat. Each goat feels differently about versing fish. Why do you choose goat? Why do you choose goat? Yes, answering if you are goat or fish is just the beginning of goat versus fish. It is just the beginning of goat versus fish. Ooh, nice verses. Nice verses of totes my goats. Nice verses. Nice verses. We see the goat. We see your goat. We see your goat. Very happy. It is very happy to choose goat. It is very happy to choose goat. Goat versus fish is very happy. Ooh, look at the goat. Look at the goat. Look at the goat. Ooh, it is totally goat. It is totally goat. It is totes goats. Totes my goats. Doobie goat, 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 goat, doobie goat, Goat, doobie goat, goat, doobie goat. Fish doobie fish, 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 fish doobie fish, fish doobie fish, 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 fish doobie fish, fish doobie fish, 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 fish doobie fish, fish doobie fish, fish doobie fish doobie fish, fish doobie fish, fish doobie fish, fish doobie fish. Do you be goat? Do you be fish? Do you be fish? Do you be goat? Goat, do be goat. Fish, do be goat versus fish. Or doobie fish, causing koi adrift. Do you be goat? Do you be fish? Do you be goat or a fish? It is a goat celebration for goat. We ring in the new goat. We ring in the new goat. Goat was thinking about goat. Goat was thinking about goat. And we thought it was a koi adrift, a koi fish adrift, a koi fish adrift, but no, it says, I will be koi no longer. I am goat. Celebration for goat. Celebration for goat. A mighty goat. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Let us see. Look at it. It is goat. It is goat. It is celebration for goat. It is celebration for goat. We celebrate the goat. Thank you for choosing goat. Thank you for choosing goat. Now let us see. Goat versus fish. You have decided. You could say currently goated. Goat versus... Is that the sound that the goat is making? Goat versus fish? Ah, it's because it was pondering you. You were pondering one another. Celebration for goat. It is two goat in the verses. It is two goat in the verses. Only there were a fish. If only there were a fish, then we could really get some goat versus fish. Goatfish. 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 Oh, look, there are so many here coming for goat versus fish. Is this a raid of goat versus fish? No, it is just 6 coming for goat versus fish. Celebration to all of you who are just now joining goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Just look at this verses. Just look at this amazing and mighty verses from not a verses ago. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. We would not want to lose this verses. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. So goat versus fish. We'll picture this verses to make sure that it is goatfish. It is Delket the goat. Celebration for Delket the goat. We celebrate the goat. Goat versus fish. And goat versus fish. We'll picture this verses just as this. We will take a picture of the but then you can see the goat versus fish. How can we picture the verses while still goat versus fish? Goat versus fish. Delket, how is the verses? Delket, how is the verses? How is the verses? Yes, that is one way for a goat versus a fish. Celebration! And now we begin the verses anew. Because Delket the goat has arrived to make it goat. And with that goat. Celebration for verses. Oh, it is still goatfish. But yes, we do celebrate the verses. Goat versus fish. Away with the previous verses. So many goat and fish were there, but it is away with that verses. Each verses of goat versus fish is anew. Unless we say it is not a new, if we say it is a continuation of a previous verses. Goat versus fish could say this as well. You never know with goat versus fish. You just know it is going to be goat versus fish. 3, 6, 5, 5 for goat. Previous high bits for goat. Previous high bits for goat. 3, 6, 5, 5 bits for goat. Wow. 3, 6, 5, 5. 3, 6, 5, 5 bits. Previous verses 1902. Previous verses 1902. But that verses is no more. 3, 6, 5, 5. 3, 6, 5, 5. A new top bits for goat. A new top bits for goat. Top bits goat 3, 6, 5, 5. Top bits for fish. It's over 9,000. It's over 9,000. The exact verses goat versus fish has on verses in a different verses, and we shall have to be. But it is over 9,000, and goat really need to get their bits together in order to triumph that verses. But all in do goat versus fish. All in do goat versus fish. Cousin Koya Drift with a question. But first, we need to celebrate the 3 goat. We need to celebrate Delket the goat. Celebration for Delket the goat, celebration for Delket the goat, and of course we need Cousin Koya Drift, also goat. Adrift no longer, it is a goat, celebration for goat, and of course, Leia the goat, That is 3 goat, no fish to speak of yet. No declaration of fish yet in this verses, even a 6 now watching goat versus fish. Cousin Koya Drift with a coy question for goat versus fish. Have you ever heard of bird versus bear? Bird versus bear. Bird versus bear does not care about you. Sadly, it's true. Bird versus bear only tries to frighten and scare. It does not care about you. It wants the verses all to its own. No matter how often goat versus fish is shown to it. Bird versus bear just never has grown. It wants the verse for its own. It wants the verse for its own. Bird versus bear is always trying to steal the verses from goat versus fish. But it is goat versus fish, and it has always been goat versus fish. Bird versus bear. Bird versus bear, false verses. Goat versus fish, true verses. How do you know? Because goat versus fish. Because look at goat versus fish. You look at goat versus fish and say that this is not a true verses of goat versus fish. The goat fish. The unity of goat and fish. Bird versus bear is welcome to celebrate verse-miss. Bird versus bear is welcome to celebrate the unification of goat and fish, but it is off just out there being its fancy self. Being its fancy self. This is truly true verses. It is truly a true verses. It is truly true verses. Celebration. Your wisdom has come far. Your wisdom has come far. The verse board is mirrored. Corruption of the fence sitter. What do the verse board? Goat versus fish. Oh, goat versus. Is that so? Goat versus fish. So you are seeing goat versus. You are seeing goat versus fish. You are seeing goat versus fish. You are seeing the reverse of goat versus fish. Well, then that is just how it is going to be this verses. That is just how it is going to be this verses. Thank you, Delket the goat, for making this verses clear to goat versus fish. It is a verses that we will ponder in future verses, but for now it shall just have to be the reverse. It shall just have to be the reverse. But goat versus fish, we could attempt to reverse the verses. You've never heard of bird versus bear, as you should not have heard of bird versus bear. Celebration. This is truly a true verses. Now, goat versus fish, we were just telling Leia that we have something for you, that we have something for you. That we have something for you. And look at what it is. Look at what it is. It is a Discord of Goat versus Fish. Wow, it is a Discord of Goat versus Fish. You can join the Discord of Goat versus Fish. We are going to invitation you. We are going to invitation you again to join a Discord of Goat versus Fish because now there are 2 more. Perhaps you do not do it. Perhaps you do. Let us find out. You can join a Discord of Goat versus Fish. Celebration. The goat reverses fish. The goat reverses fish. Goat and fish with the reversal. The goat and fish with the reversal. It has been said by Koya Drift. By Koya Drift. Goat versus fish. A mighty Discord of goat. Yes, there are many goat there. The goat reverses the fish. The goat reverses the fish. The goat reverses the fish. Look at that. It is a reverse. It's a reverse goat and fish. It's a reverse goat and fish.
Fish and goat, fish and goat, goat and fish, fish and goat, fish of the sea and the goat of the land, goat and fish hand in hand, or hoof in fin, oh, fin, fin.
It is a mighty reverse. It is a mighty reverse. We could always reverse again. We could always reverse again. Now let us see. Let us see. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Yes, we know that verses. Yes, we have sent them the verses. But now are they in the verses? Koya Drift hopped into the server. Hopped like a goat. Hopped like a goat into the server. Celebration for goat. Celebration for goat. Yes, and now you can see that you are part of the stream of Goat versus Fish. You are part of the stream of Goat versus Fish. Yes, hop. Nice verses, nice verses. Perhaps we can increase the verses. Yes. Now you can really see the verses. Now you can really see the verses. Hop, said Koya Drift in the Discord of Goat versus Fish. And then Goat versus Fish in the Discord of Goat versus Fish took the verses of Leia and just modified the verses and just said, oh, they will not notice if Goat versus Fish just reuses the same verses. Because it is the same verses. Because it is Goat versus Fish. Are you goat or are you fish? Are you goat or are you fish? Goat versus Fish asks you again. Let us make it written. Let us make it written. Let us make it written. Oh my gosh, hi, wow, how did you know it was going to be Goat Fish? How did you know the Goat Fish was here? Anticipation. Koya Drift is typing, goat is the boat, goat is the boat! That I sail. You sail the boat, goat, you sail the boat, goat.
Oh, I'll sing you I'll sing you a song of the fish of the sea. Yo, oh, blow the fence down. The fish are as mighty can be. Oh, give us some verse to blow the fence down. Along came a goat, it was coyly adrift. Yo, blow the fence down. It went out to sea to versus the fish. Oh, give us some verse to blow the fence down. The fish said to goat, what call you your boat? Yo, blow the fence down. The Koya Drift goat said its boat's name was Goat. Oh, give us some verse to blow the fence down. Blow the fence down, goat, we blow the fence down. We blow the fence down. You'll versus the fish till you get back to ground. Oh, give us some verse to blow the fence down.
Thank you, Koya Drift, for choosing goat. Thank you, Koya Drift, for choosing goat. It is Corrupt Medic. It is Subtle Bog. Celebration. It is Course 13. They are all here for goat versus fish. Now they are here for goat versus fish. Course 13 is rating with a party of 12. We were just singing a song of goat going out to sea, but Course 13 again, Course 13 again. We continue the verses.
Oh, along came a medic, corrupt as can be. Yo, blow the fence down. The Sutter was just as pog as it could be. Oh, give us some verse to blow the fence down. The verse going off without a hitch. Yo, blow the fence down. The Sutter chose goat. The Sutter chose goat. Oh, give us some verse to blow the fence down. But Course 13, the raider it be. Yo, blow the fence down. Says I'm choosing fish and I shall versus thee. Oh, give us some verse to blow the fence down. Without a hitch, hitched the mainsail and said, yo, blow the fence down. I'll versus them goats till I'm long gone and dead. Oh, give us some verse to blow the fence down. With goat versus fish, the unity of goat fish.
Celebration! Thank you for joining Goatfish. Thank you for joining Goatfish. Oh, you are all here with the Goatfish. You are all here with the Goatfish. And look at the fish. Look at the fish. Look at the goat. Look at the goat. Celebration, celebration, celebration. Yes, we were just looking at the Discord of goat versus fish. We were just looking at the Discord of goat versus fish. We were just looking at the Discord of goat versus fish. Yes, we want you all to join the Discord of goat versus fish. That is the latest in goat versus fish. The latest in goat versus fish is that there's a Discord of goat versus fish. We are going to put it right here in the verses. Right here in the verses. Join a Discord of goat versus fish. Some of you already have. Some of you already have. Cousin Koya Drift. Cousin Koya Drift. With the verses, with the pleasant, beautiful verses. You beautiful being, I would suggest not having Discord on a stream for your own well-being. Oh, what could go fence? What could go fence, Cousin Koya Drift? What could go fence? You know, it could simply, we could always make it goat versus fish. We could always make it goat versus fish. Goat versus fish, it will not always be the verses. It will not always be a verses such as this. But this verses, we are making it the verses. It will not always be the verses. This is just this verses of goat fish. Because we have just created a Discord, and now you can say in a Discord if you are goat or if you are fish. But you tell goat versus fish. You tell goat versus fish as you say what a beautiful being is goat versus fish. As beautiful as you, the beauty comes from within you, comes from within you. But why would you recommendation to the goatfish? Why would you say not to have the Discord on the stream of goat versus fish? We wish to hear from you, goat. We wish to hear from you, Koya Drift, the Koya Drift goat. We wish to hear from you why you say these verses to goat versus fish. That is what we wish to know. It is Dilk, everyone welcome Dilk, welcome Dilk. Ah, but Koya Drift, for a verse, just to see with goat versus fish. We want you all to see what is the verses. We want you all to see what is the verses. Some dingoes like to ruin a party and some say TOS subjects on open Discord. Ah, goat versus fish. Perhaps they do, perhaps they do. Well, goat versus fish is just going to take a risk. Goat versus fish is just going to take a risk, at least for one versus, because we are going to show how Koya Drift is going to, goat versus fish. We are going to give Koya Drift the role of goat. We are going to give Koya Drift the role of goat. Celebration for goat. Koya Drift has the role of goat. And then we shall give it a nickname that includes goat. Because we need to see that it is goat. And we say it is a goat. Koya Drift. Celebration. And Delket the goat with the goat declaration. Delket the goat with the goat declaration. And so we shall make Delket the goat as well. Delk. Change nickname to goat. Delk. And we save that versus. And then we make it to goat. Celebration for goat. Look, there are many goat about. And there are a few fish. Yes, it is celebration. Oh, give us some verse to blow the fence down. Goat versus fish. We now return to goat versus fish. Hello, welcome to goat versus fish. But yes, we are still celebrating goatfish without a hitch of fish. We have to do the verses. Now some are saying that the verses are reversed this verses. Well, then the verses are reversed this verses. Then the verses are reversed. What, you think you can't just goat versus fish versus goat? You think you can't just goat versus fish versus goat? Of course you can. And in any verses, this is the verses of goatfish. It is still goatfish. We began celebrating goatfish on Versemiss, and we will celebrate goatfish until the mighty verses. We wish you a merry goatfish and a mighty verses. The mighty verses is just a few verses away. So let us continue to celebrate goatfish. Cousin Koya Drift the goat. Can you change your goat versus fish if you're feeling more fish than goat? Asking for a friend. You are asking if you are a goat and you want to change to fish? Goat versus fish will tell you this. If you say you are goat, you are goat. If you say you are fish, you are fish. It is as simple as this. If you say you are fish, goat versus fish, the goatfish will not deny that you are a fish. And if you say you are a goat, it is the same verses, except that instead of fish, it is goat. Cures 13 with the question, why is it goat versus fish and not fish versus goat? It is fish versus goat. Interesting question. It is fish versus goat and goat versus fish in the same verses because they are both goat versus fish, which is to say they are both fish versus goat. See, you are thinking, it is like goat versus fish. Or perhaps that it is like goat versus fish. It's goat versus fish, and it is goat versus fish. But it is also fish versus goat, and it is also fish versus goat, and it is also goat versus fish, you see. It is goat versus fish. It is the whole verses. It is not, oh, it is goat versus fish. It is goat versus fish. It is goat versus fish. If you wish to call goat versus fish, fish versus goat, as long as the goat are versus the fish and the fish are versus the goat, then it is still goat versus fish. And as long as it is goat versus fish, then it is goat versus fish, the goat fish. And as long as it is goat versus fish, the goat fish, then it is also the fish goat. It is the goat fish, the fish goat, and it is a celebration of the unification of goat and fish. Goat and fish, goat and fish, fish and goat, goat and fish, goat of the land and the fish of the sea. Goat and fish still in unity of fish, goat, fish, goat. Rabbit manatees, hello goat versus fish, hello goat versus fish, hello to you, hello to you. Rabbit manatees, welcome to the verses, and this verses it is goatfish, this verses it is goatfish. Yes. Rabbit manatees, if you have not yet joined, If you have not yet joined the Discord of Goat vs. Fish, you should join a Discord of Goat vs. Fish. So even after it is no longer the stream of Goatfish, the verses just continue. The verses just keep on continuing. Come, let us make this a bit of a festive verses. Yes, let us make this a bit of a festive verses. Goatfish, goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. That is one verses, yes. It can be a wreath verses, it can be a tree verses. Yes, let us look at the verses. Wreath verses, round and round it goes. Is that a goat? Is that a fish? Are they goat or fish, or are we surrounded by fence sitters? Yes, it can be the fence mystery. It can be the fence mystery of celebration. It can be, ooh, the fire of goat versus fish. Ooh, goat versus fish speaks to you. The fire burns, the fire of goat versus fish. Yes, it is as bright as the verses itself. It is the verses itself. So which do you wish? Which do you wish? Goat versus fish? I'll start a poll. Goat versus fish? I'll start a poll. The poll shall begin. The poll shall begin. We shall make a poll for you. Poll! And as we are, let us have a bit of celebration. Goat versus fish, we are going to bring the celebration to you. Goat versus fish, we are going to bring a celebration to you. Do not despair. Here comes the verse, and goat versus fish is going to put in our little verses here. Goat versus fish. And now goat versus fish can go to this verses. And we shall say, goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Oh no! Goat versus fish. Come now, goat versus fish. Come now, goat versus fish. What is this falseness? What is this falseness with goat versus fish? Oh, my verses. It's getting fancy with goat versus fish. It is getting very fancy with goat versus fish. Ah, there's the verses. There's the verses. Yep, we have verses. We have verses. Goat versus fish. We thought we had lost verses, therefore verses. Oh, we are losing the verses. We are losing the verses. Fanciness. 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 Let there be goat versus fish. Let there be goat versus fish. Lightick, welcome, Lightick the goat. We are just preparing you for the celebration. We are preparing you for the celebration. And as for this verses, yes, we are going to end this verses, begin a verses anew. Goat versus fish, 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 goat versus fish. Goat versus fish is going to do these verses. Tell us if you can hear these verses. Tell us if you can hear these verses. Can you hear the verses? Can you hear the verses? Yes? Celebration. Enjoy the verses. Enjoy it. Relax with goat versus fish.
It's the most wonderful verse of the year. Goat and the fish and the fish and the goat. The goat versus the fish. The poll has begun, the poll has begun, the poll has begun. The poll has begun. There's a poll in the Twitch, there's a poll in the Twitch. Refresh your verses if you must, refresh your verses if you must. We want to know if the backing ground should be a wreath, a tree, or a hearth, and then we will discuss if they are goat or fish. But first verses, let us first determine, what shall it be, what shall it be? But we would not want you to think that we are trying to point you into any particular verses. So for goat versus fish, we shall give you goat versus fish for this verses. As we are determining the verses, we shall just get more goat versus fish. We shall just get more goat fish. We shall get more goat fish. And now that we have our celebration ready, let us get back to counting goat and fish. One of the true verses, just counting the goat and fish. Ooh, burning the fence. Yes, throw another fence post on the verses. Goat versus fish. Let us go into see. Who is here? Goat versus fish. We have Z Subtle with the declaration of goat. And it was written. Corrupt Medic with the declaration of goat. And it was written. Cures 13 with the fish. Celebration for Cures 13 the fish. If it wasn't for Cures 13 the fish, we would not have a fish this versus. Celebration for Cures 13. Celebration. Without a hitch, also bringing the fish. We suppose it could have been without a hitch and not Cures 13, but in any verses it is 2 fish. Now it is 2 fish and 5 goat. Rabid manatees with the fish. Lytic with the goat. And it was written. Looking like a goat, looking like a goatfish. Rabid Manatees tells Delket, I am the true fish, I am the true fish. Well, Delket, it looks like you have a fish to verses. That is to say to you know, for Versmis. For Versmis. For the mighty verses. For the mighty verses. On Versmis we celebrate goatfish, and then comes the mighty verses. Then comes the mighty verses. The question is each goat going to have a fish to verses on Versmis? Every goat should have a fish to verses on Versmis, and every fish should have a goat to verses on Versmis. So they can form the unification, but then when it comes to the mighty verses, we wish you a merry goatfish and a mighty verses. The upcoming mighty verses. Not to be confused with Versmis. In the upcoming mighty verses, every goat should have a fish to verses and every fish a goat to verses. So you can verses at the mighty verses. But the fence divides us all. Do not let the fence divide the goat from the fish. You can verses. These streams are getting ever more fancy. Truly, evolution of the verses. Oh, the verses is always changing. And yet it remains goat fish. Only the verses will tell. But that is why we are questioning. That is why we are saying to you. Goat versus fish. The vote. Goat versus fish. We cannot forget that the poll of goat versus fish. Delket redeemed. Delket. Redemption. Oh, goat versus fish. Yes, more fancy in the verses. So now it seems that the redemption does not happen in a StreamYard, so goat versus fish. It is a versus between tree and hearth. But which is goat, but which is fish? But there was only one versus for each verses. Well then, we have this versus, so we shall give you, we shall compromisation, because we have a hearth there, then we shall do this versus. It is like you are seeing the fence in one versus. It is the fence in this versus, and then it is the fence in the next versus. This fence becomes that fence. You see. Once we are done with the celebration, then that fence becomes the other fence. Throw another post on the fence. Throw another post of the fence onto the verses. So yes, goat and fish. If you goat and fish wish to ask one another now, you can ask one another now. You can say, will you be my mighty verses? We know that Rabid Manatees tells Delket the goat, I am the true fish. We wonder. Delket the goat, Rabid Manatees the fish. Do you wish to be goat and fish? Do you wish to be goat and fish together for the mighty verses? The upcoming mighty verses? To know that you are the goat and you are the fish to one another, and you can have a mighty verses. You can have a mighty verses. On the mighty verses. So we go GOATVSFISH. Mighty verses. And then the goat looks at the fish, and then the fish looks at the goat, and they verses. Just like the verse I used to know. So yes. Delket said, Rabid Manatees will verse me, I am sure. I shall lock horns with his fins in true verses. What do you say, Rabid Manatees? Do you, I mean, you know, whatever you say now, it really comes down to that moment of verses, you know? It really comes down to that moment of mighty verses. There's always some tension there, because it has been goatfish for so long. When the mighty verses comes about. Perhaps it shall be Delket and Rabid Manatees. Perhaps it shall be. We will make it written. We shall make it written. Delket, I shall lock horns with his fins in the true verses. Shall it be Delket? Mighty versus. Versus rabid manatees. We shall see. We shall see. You can read in reverse. You can read in reverse. Of course you can read in reverse. You see goat versus fish. You see fish versus goat. I saw goat versing fishy claws. Ooh, goat versus Delcat. Ooh, Delcat looking mighty, looking mighty. You see, this is where goat versus fish just would have to show you, but we are listening to the verses. Delcat, in the Discord of goat versus fish, Delcat shared a mighty goat. You really need to see this goat. This goat is ready for the mighty verses. Ooh, truly ready for the mighty verses. Yes, we are going to invitation. We are going to invitation you all again. Because if there's even one of you that missed the invitation, we wish to send it to you again. Discord of Goat vs. Fish invitation. But now we can see. So in the StreamYard of Goat vs. Fish, we do not see the redemption. Pities Goat vs. Fish to say this, but the next verses we need. Now we have spent this verses, we are making a Discord for Goat vs. Fish. But we think we need a fence bot. We think we need a fence bot in the living streams of Goat vs. Fish. We think we need a fence bot to tell Goat vs. Fish what has happened, because in the StreamYard, so we can show to the YouTube and to the Twitch in the same verses. Even though none are ever watching on the YouTube, it is still a pleasant verses to do. None are watching now, but soon they shall, soon they shall. Goat vs. Fish. So yes. We must get a fence bot. We must get a fence bot! You know, it will not truly have a mind of its own. It will just do whatever Goat vs. Fish tells it to do. You know the fence bot. You know the fence bot. Some think, oh, the fence shall rise and become sentient fence bot. But really, from a fence sitter programmed by Goat vs. Fish? Ah! Yes, we shall have a fence bot, and the fence bot shall tell us when the verses are happening in the verses. Because there was a redemption. Delcat redeemed. Delcat the goat. Are you there, Delcat the goat? Delcat the goat. Delcat the goat. Tell the goatfish if you are here. Tell goatfish if you are here. You are here. We see you have made a redemption. Show yourself! Do not cower in the kelp! Because Delcat has redeemed... For 200 verses, Delcat has redeemed. Has made a redemption. Ask another one the one true question. 200 verses. And Delcat said, ask rabid manatees the true verses. Well, you have redeemed it. Delcat has redeemed it. Goat vs. Fish will ask rabid manatees the one true question. And for this redemption, we are really going to make it Goat vs. Fish. Rabid manatees! Are you goat or are you fish? That was the verses. Celebration! Celebration! You can now redeem 200 verses. Goat vs. Fish was making the Discord of Goat vs. Fish, and we completely forgot the verses that we have made new channel points. New channel points. You can make Goat vs. Fish ask you the one true question, and you can make Goat vs. Fish ask another the one true question. Well, you cannot make Goat vs. Fish, but we are willing to do it for a few verses. Delcat the goat, was this to your satisfaction? Was this to your satisfaction? You redeemed Goat vs. Fish asking rabid manatees the one true question, and we did.
Do you think this is a fair versus, Delket? Delket the goat. Was this celebration? Was this celebration to you?
The older verses be forgot, and mighty verse again.
Celebrations, however, he sits scared in the sand of the sea. Oh, it seems not to be responding anymore. But we suspect it is there. We suspect perhaps it is trying to lure you into a false sense of security, goat. It is plotting for the mighty verses to come. They are plotting for the mighty verses to come, even as the goat and fish are in unification. You know there's plotting and planning. Goat plotting against fish, fish plotting against goat. It will be a mighty verses. May all the fences be forgot, and only goat and fish. Yes! Our cousin Koya Drift asked me the one true question. 22 verses ago. Cousin Koya Drift! Are you goat or are you fish? Are you goat or are you fish? Are you goat or are you fish? Cousin Koya Drift, yes, are you goat or fish? The question was asked. Was this pleasant to you? Was this pleasant to you? Yes, we shall have to make a fence bot. We shall have to make a fence bot to alert goat versus fish in the stream yard of goat versus fish when one has made a redemption. Yes, it is becoming all the more goat versus fish. It's becoming all the more versus fish. We told you, you were saying, where was the goatfish? Where was the goatfish? We were just making the streams of goat versus fish all the more versable. All the more versable. And that was the celebration. That was the celebration. But we think we shall versus again. We shall versus again. Why not versus again? We will tell you why not versus again. We will not versus again in that versus because we could just do the versus for you. Let us see now. Let us find the verses. Let us find the verses. Goat versus fish. It's the most wonderful verse of the year.
goat or fish. It's the most merciful time of the year. It's the happiest time of the year. It's the happiest reason of them all. With those verses, day greetings, and fence-sitters seating on all kinds of fens. It's the most goat versus fish. It's the goat versus fish. Most fanciest time of the year. There'll be verses for hosting and goat and fish, boasting and singing out in the snow. There'll be goat versus fish. Scary fence stories and tales of the glories of Christmases from long ago. It's the most merciful time of the year. There'll be much fence-sill towing, and hearts shall be growing with goat and fish near. It's the most merciful time of the year.
You see, we got through the verses together. What is goat versus fish even looking upon? What is goat versus fish even looking upon when goat versus fish is looking at these verses? Perhaps goat versus fish will show you. Yes, we shall show you. Yes, we shall show you now. This is the verses. We are looking at verses such as this.
To remind you of verse long ago.
Yes, we are looking at verses such as this. Yes, you can see. Yes, there's the verses. Oh, goat versus fish could actually do that verses and see goat versus fish within the verses and you can be looking along with goat versus fish. But we cannot quite see the verses. But you can at least yes, you can see along with goat versus fish. You can see along with goat versus fish, and you can see what is to be doing goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. No, stop moving about. No, we did not ask you to do it. Goat versus fish. Stop the verses. Stop the verses. Stop the verses. Yes, now you can see. Now can you see goat versus fish? Yes, you can see goat versus fish. What if we made it even a larger verses? Yes, now perhaps you can really see goat versus fish. Yes. So now you can see what is to be doing goat versus fish when goat versus fish is singing you the verses.
It's the most merciful.
You see, that does not sound merciful. But then if we look at the verses, it shows us second verses.
It's the most merciful time of the year. And then we are just not doing those verses because we just want to get on the verses. With the kids jingle fencing and none with pretensing if they're goat or fish. It's the most merciful time of the year. Celebration, celebration. Baby goats jingle belling, baby goats jingle belling. Yes, yes, because a kid is a baby goat. A kid is a baby goat. A kid is a baby goat, Delket. You know these verses. You know these verses. So we could say baby goats jingle belling, but we could also just say with the kids jingle belling. But a kid is a baby goat. So you are saying, make it baby goats jingle belling. We do not even have to say a kid. Yes, we could say baby goats jingle belling and smelly goats smelling of all kinds of fish. All the fish that they have verses with the kids jingle belling, all goatily smelling of all kinds of fish. All the fish that the goats did verses. We like that verses. We like that verses. Indeed, yes, Delket, with approval of this verses. Delket with approval of this verses. Of all kinds of fish. Yes, if any of you have recommendation, if you wish to, we are still celebrating goatfish, as you can see. So if any of you wish to say, sing us a song of goat versus fish, then goat versus fish will attempt to look at the verses. We'll attempt to look at the verses and to tell you, and we will see if we can do the verses. We will see if we can do the verses. Delket the goat, perhaps you know these verses. Perhaps you know these verses. You know, when goat versus fish, some verses when they are raiding, when goat versus fish is there and they say, we are going to raid now, we are going to raid now. They say, we are going to raid. And then they raid. And then they tell them, they say, you who we have raided, be sure to refresh your verses, they say to the one who raids, refresh. Or they tell the ones who just raided. Yes, so to say, let us suppose you raid goat versus fish. And then goat versus fish would say, you must refresh your verses now for some verses. Is it how Twitch is to be counting it, goat versus fish? We do not know. The goat must devise a battle chant for the end of goatfish. Yes, goats, do it. Rally your goat, rally your fellow goat. And devise a chant of goat, and the fish can have a chant of fish. But if the fish are unprepared and do not have a chant, like the goat, that would be a triumph for goat. 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 It's the most wonderful goat of the fish. Goat of the fish, of the fish, of the goat. Goat versus fish. Well, goat versus fish. We think that is going to be the verses.
It is almost as though goatfish cannot be maintained forever. It is almost as if goatfish cannot be maintained forever. On the first verse of goatfish. On the first verse of goatfish, the goatfish gave to me a goat versus a fish. On the second verse of goatfish, the goatfish gave to me 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the third verse of goatfish, the goatfish gave to me 3 goatfish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the fourth verse of goatfish, the goatfish gave to me 4 goat and fish, 3 goatfish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the fifth verse of goatfish, the goatfish gave to me goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the sixth verse of goatfish, the goatfish gave to me 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the seventh verse of goatfish, the goatfish gave to me 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the eighth verse of goatfish, the goatfish gave to me fence sitters. 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the ninth verse of goatfish, the goatfish gave to me 9 goat and fish. Fence sitters. 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the 10th verse of goatfish, the goatfish gave to me 10 goat and fish, 9 goat and fish. Fence sitters. 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. On the 11th verse of goatfish, the goatfish gave to me 11 goat and fish, 10 goat and fish, 9 goat and fish. Fence sitters. 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a
Verses of verses of verses of verses of verses of fish. On the 12th verse of goldfish, the goldfish gave to me 12 fish and goat, 11 goat and fish, 10 goat and fish, 9 goat and fish, fence-sitters. 7 goat and fish, 6 goat and fish, goat versus fish. 4 goat and fish, 3 goat fish, 2 goat and fish, and a goat versus a fish. What a pleasant verses with goatfish. And in this verses, and in this verses. And in this verses. Of goatfish. 6 goat. 3 fish. 2 goat for every fish. That's the verses we should learn. 2 goat for every fish. Ooh, now 18 viewing goat versus fish. They just keep coming for goat versus fish. Who is here? Ooh, look at this. Who is here? Oh, Nephew Quinn lurking in the verses. Nephew Quinn lurking in the verses. Oh, we see you there. We see you there. We are just enjoying an easy verses. Just a nice, easy verses of goatfish. It is, after all, late in the verses. Goat versus fish is not always goat versus fish, goat versus fish, goat versus fish. Some verses it is just a bit of goatfish. It is just a bit of goatfish. And celebration always. Who was lurking about? Who was lurking about at goatfish? Yes. Sweet September, yes. Nephew Quinn, yes. Have this too. Gridlock 777. Electrical longboard. El Butt Bandito. Oh, we haven't seen your butt on the fence in recent verses. Commander Root. We think that is just a lurking fencer. Clever wolves. Are you so clever? So clever that you cannot choose goat or fish? Casino, thanks. Thank you. Do you wish to gamble on goat versus fish? Bet on goat, bet on fish? Of course you know the verse always wins. You know when you have that spinning verses, and you could say, well, I want 36 goat or I want 37 fish, but they always add that fence. They always add the fence, and some verses the double fence, and some verses the triple fence. Why do they add the fence? Why do they have to add that fence? Why can't it just be an honest, even verses? Says goat versus fish. Says goat versus fish. We like this verses of Delket the goat. Truly it is goat versus fish versus goat versus fish versus goat versus fish versus goat versus fish. Now that is a verses of goat versus fish. Goatfish. Goatfish has been live on the Twitch. Goatfish has been live on the Twitch. And YouTube as well, We are multiversing. Goatfish now bids you adieu. Thank you for joining the Goatfish crew. Even if you think goat versus fish is stupid, it's not as stupid as you. Who thinks goat versus fish is stupid? It is not as stupid as you. Except that it is exactly as stupid as you, because goat versus fish comes from within you. So if you say that goat versus fish is stupid, it is because you are calling yourself stupid yourself. Goatfish, the unity of goatfish remains. But the mightyverse is coming. The mightyverse is coming. Let us see how out it plays. Soon the counting down will begin. It goes as GOATVSFISH. And when that verse is finally falls, it is a mighty verses for all. A mighty verses for all. Goat and fish. A mighty verses for all. A goat and fish in unification. A goat and fish in unification. A goat and fish in unification. Goat and fish unification. The goat and fish remain so mightily in unification. A celebration for unification. And Delcat the goat cheering out goat versus fish just at the end of the verses. Thank you, Delcat the goat. Thank you, Delcat the goat, for cheering on goat versus fish. Delcat the goat with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for goatfish. Delcat the goat, you are the only one to cheer for the goatfish in this whole verses. You are the only one to cheer for goatfish in this whole verses. But we do not despair. Goat versus fish is in this for the long verses, and in the long verses, we know there's going to be much celebration for goat versus fish. There already has. The mighty verses will be a mighty one. Thank you all for joining the goatfish. Thank you all for joining the goatfish. Final declarations, final cheers, final verses for goat versus fish. Final cheers, final declarations, final follows for the goatfish. Here come goat and fish, here come goat and fish. Here come goat and fish. Farewell, goat. Goat says farewell to you. Goat says farewell to you. Farewell. We shall see you on the mighty verses, perhaps sooner. And so does fish, and so does fish. Yes, verse thee well, verse thee well. Yes, we shall see you at the mighty verses. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. Perhaps we should just Get to know this verses. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. Goat versus fish. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. Goatfish, you. Goat versus fish. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. Goatfish, you. Goat versus fish. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. We should learn that verses. It is not the end of the verses. We have one more verses to learn. One more verses to learn. One more verses to learn. Oh, we have sung these verses before. We have sung these verses before, some verses ago. Let us see now. Let us see now. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. Goatfish, you a merry goatfish. Goatfish and goat versus fish. And mighty verses. Verse tidings we bring to all goat and fish. Verse tidings for goatfish and mighty verses. Oh yes. Goatfish, you are merry. Oh, that is the verses. Goatfish, you are merry. Goatfish. By goatfish, we want it to be a merry goatfish. Goatfish, you are merry. Goatfish, you are merry. Goatfish, you are merry. Goatfish, you are merry. Goatfish, and mighty. Let's make it mighty. Mighty verses. Verse tidings we bring to all goat and fish. Verse tidings for goatfish and mighty verses. We won't sit on the fence and we won't sit on the fence. We won't sit on the fence. Don't bring it round here. Fine verses we bring. Do you and your fish. Fine verses for goatfish and mighty verses. Fine verses we bring for you and your goat. Fine verses for goatfish and mighty verses. Goatfish, you are merry. Goatfish, you are merry. Goatfish, you are merry. Goatfish and mighty verses. And look who it is. I am the real fish, Dad. I am the real fish, Dad. I am the real fish. Says
Says goat versus fish. Says Askawi Sog. Celebration. You are the real fish, Dad. You are the real fish. There you are in the ending of the stream. There you are in the ending of the stream saying you are the real fish, Dad. The real fish, Dad. And you shall be counted, and you shall be counted. You too shall be counted. You too shall be counted among the fish. Still in unification. Of course, the goat have contribution 6 bits. If you were to give 7 bits to goat versus fish. Or perhaps 6. 6 for bit unification of goat and fish. 7 if you wanted to be a little more fish than goat. But your presence here is a present for goat versus fish. Your presence is a present for goat versus fish. What is your present for goat versus fish? What does goat versus fish wish for verse, miss? We wish your presents. Give your presents to goat versus fish. Give your presents to goat fish. That is what goat versus fish wants every verse is. Every verse, miss, we say, what does goat versus fish want? We say, we want your presents. Give us all your presents. Give us all your presents. Goat versus fish. We are going to put that right now on the Twitterver. We want your presents. We must make it written. We must make it written. Congratulations on being the real fish. Congratulations on being the real fish. So now goat versus fish. We'll go to Twitter. And goat versus fish will say, goat versus fish wants your presents for Versmiss. Wants all your presents. And then goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Let us see. Goat versus fish. Present. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. You see, each and every verses is meticulously goat and fish crafted for your celebration. That is the power of goat versus fish. Goat versus fish wants all your presents for Versmiss. Celebration. Celebration. We like our own verses. We like goat versus fish. Do you like goat versus fish? We want your presents. We want your presents. That has been the verses. Thank you, Askai SOG, for being here with the goatfish. And we shall remind you as well. We shall remind you as well. We shall remind you as well, if you have not already, to join the Discord of Goat versus Fish, because out of the Discord will come a mighty verses. Out of the Discord will come a mighty verses. Out of the Discord will come a mighty verses. Ooh, Delket the Goat still versing. Still versing in the Discord. Wow, celebration. And we make an invitation. And we invite you. Askai Sog. There, join the Discord of Goat versus Fish. Join the Discord of the Goatfish and make your verses known. We hope you do. And in any verses, we shall see you on the next verses. We shall see you on the next verses. Goat versus fish. And it was written, and it was written. Oh, but we should raid. Goat versus fish. We must remember always to be raiding, always to be raiding. Always to be raiding. Yes, because we are getting used to these new verses. You can see, we have a newer, mightier verses. And there are not so many that are even alive now. Goat versus fish does not know who is alive, these verses. Do any of you have recommendation? Yes, we know Teddy Boo 14, we are always raiding. We raided it just last verses. There is It's Big Mike, but goat versus fish. And there is higher level. There is higher lev 3L. But if any of you have a suggestion for who to raid, say it now or forever hold your verses. Goat versus fish could search. We could search for one on the Twitch. Wouldn't that be an interesting versus? We could search for a new one in the old verses. Let us see if any are playing Goat Simulator. Let us see. Are any playing Goat Simulator? What? None are live playing Goat Simulator. What a fence. Goat versus fish takes offense to this. None are playing Goat Simulator. There's not one single simulation of goat happening on all of the Twitch at this very verses. False verses. What about fish? Ah, there is a streamer that is called Fish. There's a streamer that is called Fish. And it has 16,000 following it. And it is called Fish. We need to learn about this fish. Is there a streamer simply called Goat? There is not a streamer simply called a Goat. But there is Goat of Duty. Action game. Goat of Duty is a fast-paced multiplayer shooter where goats are armed to the horns, bleat face to face in relentless deathmatch. Well, Goat versus Fish will have to play Goat of Duty. That is a certain versus. Let us see what else we can find of Goat versus Fish. Yes, let us search for Fish Game. Fish Game. Fish. And here is one called Copper Tropicals. And it has one viewer and it says fish. Let us see what is this versus. Koi TV Live spawning. New fish. This could be a versus. This could be a mighty versus. Could be a mighty versus. Let us see. Goat versus fish. Well, it looks like fish. It looks like a spawning fish. It is difficult to truly perceive what is happening in this versus. But it seems that they are looking all about the verses. They are looking all about the universe. And goat versus fish. We suppose that we could actually show you the verses as we look upon them. We could show you the verses as we look upon them, unless they don't want their verses on Goat versus Fish. But what sort of verses would that be? We were sharing their very verses. We shall show you just a bit of verses. So if this is the verses, Goat versus Fish. Goat versus fish can show you now. Yes, this is a versus. This is some sort of versus of copper tropicals. It says they are spawning fish, but it does not quite look as the Sea of the Fish. It almost looks a bit fenced. And now what has happened to it? It's just still versus. It's still versus. Still versus. Goat versus fish is going to say goat versus fish. And now goat versus fish. It's going to go back to the verses and search for fish again. So see, there's the one that's called fish. There's the one that is called fish. And now goat versus fish. We'll see. Here is armadillo man. Fish. No, this is a versus. Look at the fish. Look at the fish. Look at the fish. We are coming for you. We are coming for you. Goat versus fish is coming for you. We are becoming ready to raid. We are becoming ready to raid. Celebration, celebration. Thank you for being part of Goatfish for the millionth versus. This was Goat versus Fish, the Goatfish.